The Articulate Coven is the original, unofficial podcast and fan community for Anne Rice's Interview with the Vampire and Anne Rice's Immortal universe from AMC and AMC+. Welcome to the Articulate Coven. We are your hosts. I'm Joel.
I'm Ashley.
And we are the Articulate Coven. The Articulate Coven is the original unofficial fan podcast and community for Anne Rice's Interview with the Vampire, the Vampire Chronicles at Large, the Mayfair Witches, and all the other wonderful paranormal worlds of Anne Rice. We do the books, we cover the movies, and right now we're covering Season 2 of Interview with the Vampire from AMC and AMC+. Ashley, an excellent episode tonight. As I told you before we got on, I've got a ton of notes, so I think
I'm so glad because there was 1,010 things that happened, and then also on top of that, 8,023 little clues and hints and weirdness. So there's a lot to unpack.
And there's been a lot of great discussion on our Facebook page.
There has been.
And the YouTube channel already, and so I appreciate you for
great.
feeding back. But that's just meant that we've got more to discuss. So we're going to try
so
to get
much
straight
to talk
to it.
About.
Straight to it. So first of all, long-term follow-up, Ashley. In episode 2 of season 1, Lestat is uber offended at a bad singer. Remember, they're at the opera. The guy's terrible. The tenor's terrible.
Yes. It's one of my favorite moments in the whole thing. I love it.
I absolutely love it. Okay, and when we discussed it, we were talking about, as a matter of fact, we named the episode, it's very much something Hannibal would do. You said that phrase in discussion. We were discussing the comparisons between, it was probably our first time, honestly, of comparing the Hannibal TV series from NBC and this series from AMC.
Yeah.
Today, I just am absent-mindedly at lunch beginning my first, and then I realized it's probably not a great lunch movie either, but I started a rewatch of Red Dragon. And
lunchtime thoughts.
Yeah, right. The remake of the Manhunter movie that Brian Cox originally played him, and Anthony Hopkins finally went back and played Hannibal Lecter in that first Hannibal Lecter story. Yeah, it is a great movie. I really enjoy it quite a lot.
Is it Ray Fiennes? Yeah,
Ray Fiennes is Dollar Hyde, and
yeah, he's so good. Oh, that's so gross and scary.
What's his name? Is Will Graham? Gosh, he was the first Hulk. I mean, not the first Hulk. He was the first Marvel Hulk.
Edward Norton. Edward Norton, yeah.
Yeah, Edward Norton. Anyway, the opening of that movie, Hannibal is wincing in the audience as a terrible flutist plays off key, and then he serves him to the symphony board right before Will Graham sort of realizes that Hannibal is the bad guy, and that is the start of the movie. But yeah, you get a flashback.
I haven't watched that in so long. That's so hilarious.
I hadn't watched it either. But you get a flashback that starts like before the movie, basically before the story of Red Dragon, and you get this little moment while Hannibal was still a free man consulting with the FBI. Very, very cool moment. But anyway, it's not something that Hannibal would do. It's something Hannibal had done.
Hannibal did.
Yeah, you and I just had forgotten it. So there you go. All right.
Oh,
one correction.
That's amazing.
You and I have been talking for several weeks now about the great, and at many times I personally have referred to it as the great convergence. We're like halfway hearing it in this episode.
Right.
And they've talked about it a few times on the show, and then occasionally it comes up in the previously on. This week I saw it in the captions,
subtitles.
But I also heard it very clearly, and then in the episode it goes further. It's the great conversion,
yes
as in they are converting people to vampires, and we see that happen, or we see that described later in the episode as well.
Yes. Oh my god, there's just so much in this episode. It's insane. I can't believe it was only an hour long.
So how did we ever miss the part 2 in the title card, Ashley? It's so obvious now that I called it out last week, and I
don't know.
I stopped it and asked my wife. I was like, how did we not see that before? She's like, I don't know. I didn't see it either.
I mean, I think we were just giddy with anticipation,
Right. So the music mix is great in this episode again, by the way, just as it had been previously.
We're a little back too, and I think that I'm totally right about that last episode being just smoke and fucking bullshit mirrors.
Yes, it was literally a ploy to showcase that this was a story being told, not necessarily truth.
Yep.
Okay, when this episode opens in the bar, in the sushi bar, and I know immediately we're going to get Justin Kirk because I'd seen in the trailers that that's where they meet. Makes sense, obviously. You're like, how are you going to get another character in to the modern day story when Daniel's stuck in the penthouse? Well, he gets to go around the rest of the building, right? Okay, so Justin Kirk meets him in the bar, and I'm just like, I'm flabbergasted that they're starting that way. I'm like, we're going straight the fuck in on this episode, aren't we?
Yes, we are. Yes, we are.
Okay, so the paper that Daniel is taking notes on before Justin even speaks up, lots of scribbles, couldn't make all of it out, and I couldn't connect them all. However,
but the good Redditors have, Joel.
That's what I was going to say. So Erica Robert Paolo, especially in our Facebook group, has posted some close-up images and frozen images of not just that, but also the files later on Daniel's computer. So if you're interested in that, I'd suggest go through there. We're going to talk about a few things, but the one that I saw specifically on his notes there, his handwritten notes, it said Playboy magazine. Now, obviously, that's a call out to the memory of Armand, referring to him having sold his dirty magazines, his dad's dirty magazines as a middle schooler.
Right.
But I think this is a call out to a little Easter egg for us fans. You know, Anne Rice had penned the Armand short story that ran in Playboy. We've talked about it before. I think it's in the Facebook group, like actually linked at some point. I'll try to find it and put it in the show notes for this episode. But I think that's a little call out to the fact that, you know, Armand's only solo story for so long was in Playboy.
Playboy.
Yeah.
You know, they published great stories. A lot of people read it for the writing, Joel.
I mean, they make a Braille version. That's not total bullshit, Ashley. It is a joke, but also it's not. Okay, spoilers in the theme music aside, I am so glad that this is Raglan James instead of David. Justin Kirk is perfect for Raglan James. I had not thought about it in that way, but when we saw him and the speculation was David, I thought, I mean, I like Justin Kirk. He's a good actor, but when I think David, I think gravitas. I think, you know, I want Sir Alec Guinness. He's not available, but
no, indeed. Maybe you could get Ewan McGregor and age him up. Yeah, no, he also still reads young for that character to me, but I could see them aging that character down. You know, I could see that being something they would do just for, you know, for whatever reason, so they could get someone, I don't know, kind of hot playing it. I don't know.
Well, anyway, Raglan James in the novels, and no spoilers exactly on where that's coming from. We might talk a little bit later on, but
right,
Raglan James is such a slick shitheel in the novel.
Yeah, that's a really good description of slick shitheel. He's such a scuzzbag.
Yes.
He's very like slimy, scummy, like sneaky, but and like really brilliantly manipulative too, which is something I think we have to remember if you're familiar with the books, he is very manipulative, and so going forward, dealing with fucking him, like we still have to be on our toes. Like I kind of wish it was David, so we could at least we know that someone's dealing with somebody who's not a fucking piece of shit.
No, but see, I think that's what's amazing because, okay, and we'll talk about this in the post episode insider a greater amount, but there were several references in that insider to the word Talamasca. That word is not said in the episode itself, though.
No, not at all.
And the implication is,
and they've not
Raglan,
been mentioned.
No, not in this show at all.
In the interview at all.
So the implication is that he is working for the Talamasca. Book readers might surmise that, and that would make sense based on his character. And yet,
but book readers also might surmise that he's a sneaky piece of shit, and he's probably gone rogue.
Exactly.
Like probably already gone rogue at this point. There is no way that Talamasca is letting him release all of these fucking files to Daniel Malloy, who is sitting in a room with fucking Armand and fucking Louis. Like there is no way in any realm that's happening. He's totally already gone rogue.
Well, and even in Queen of the Damned, none of the Talamasca leadership are for any sort of direct interaction.
Interference,
with
yeah.
they're not even then with the vampires. They're like, we got to just watch this play out.
It's like Star Trek. Non-interference is the prime directive. Like, we are here to watch. We're not here to fucking meddle in this. And when they meddle, they get in big trouble, and that's a whole fucking thing, you know? Like, they know that. That's part of their history. When you get involved with these supernatural things, bad shit happens to you, and it hurts the group at large.
So I will say my assumption would be that this character, if not the lead of, would be a major figure in the Talamasca series that we've heard is in the works.
Yeah, that could be in setting up the next, the book that we know is coming.
Well, and the beauty of that is that's a character that we actually get. There's a whole novel about him, but at the same time, he's in it very little. As far as like, we don't know a great deal about him because everything he says is suspect. And so to get some of his backstory through this series and perhaps another one, a spinoff.
So much fun.
Yeah, I'm very on board for that.
And it's such a place you can mine new material easily that people are going to be excited to have. Like, it's just when you get more background on a character that you love, like please continue to do this. Like, please continue to create cool backstories and grow these awesome characters. Like, that keeps the potential for these series to go, for Walking Dead style years.
Yes. And not just that, but you can split up your contracts with your bigger actors and spread around the budget in a way that makes it make more sense for the company. Also, you can fill our calendar year with these projects instead of having to wait 6 months, 9 months, a year at a time to get a different
And
one.
your audience is always engaged and is always engaging with the material and with what's going on. I mean, that's like, I imagine that has to be their goal. They're treating it like, they're advertising it and promoting it like that. Like, they expect it to be their next Walking Dead.
Yes, absolutely.
Which I'm happy with. Thank you very much.
So Raglan James introduces himself and says, the great conversion, it's real, it's happening. We were tracking 900 of them a month ago. Now we're tracking 1,600.
Yeah.
So 700 vampires made in the last month is what he is. And again, is any of this true? We don't know, but that's what he's telling Daniel there. That's all we've got to go on here.
Right.
Really, really interesting. And that again would make sense in what you imagine they're building up to for the Queen of the Damned storyline. So it's so cool. In this episode especially, we get glimpses of the second book, obviously, but they're laying track for the third and the fourth and beyond, and it's
so fantastic.
It's awesome. It's awesome.
I think that's what was really, really exciting about this episode to me is that it's like you see glimpses of the future of this. And I think it's such a, like, God, please get our renewal in ASAP, please.
Okay, so Raglan references 4 others, meaning other than Daniel, who have tried this, i.e. interacting directly with the vampires, and all of them are dead.
Or undead.
Yeah. I wonder who those 4 are. Do we... I guarantee you there are some examples from the book that would make sense if you go back and look when Aaron Leitner and David get involved in Queen of the Damned, and when they are counseling Jesse not to get involved. I know there are other agents that are referenced, other members of the Talamasca that are referenced that have gone missing in one way or another.
And that's a great little teaser, too, for what we're going to hopefully get to see in the Talamasca series is the story of those, investigators. And it's so fucking exciting. Like, that's this made me really excited about the Talamasca series. And like somebody else said, this is not the same half-assed version of Talamasca we saw in Mayfair, which was... like, as I'll refer to it, the New Orleans office.
Okay, so speaking of Mayfair, the teaser trailer came out. They announced the second season's going to be out in 2025. So first of all, we get a reprieve.
We get a break.
We don't get to suffer through that this year. The other thing that I thought about is, that if they're going to make that Talamasca series work, even if they're going to stray from the book, and clearly they have here, the timelines are obviously going to shift based on the interview series and any connections that they want to make there. That already has been the case for the Mayfair series. Would be a period piece at this point, and it's now the TV series is not a period piece. We talked about that when we were watching it, but still, they're going to have to retcon some of season 1 of Mayfair
some
Witches.
of the shenanigans.
and I think that's what it's going to end up being, is those were all rogue agents. They don't represent the agency at all, and et cetera, et cetera.
We had to shut down the New Orleans office.
yeah. And maybe then we'll finally be introduced to David or to Aaron when they have to rebuild the New Orleans mother house,
There we go. We can be hopeful. That would be a really good way to do it.
Okay, let me tell you how loud I laughed when Daniel turns to the cafe and asks very loudly if anyone likes intelligence officers. First of all,
hilarious.
Obviously in a high-rise penthouse like that in Dubai, he's imagining there are some nefarious folks of one sort or another that wouldn't be interested.
They wouldn't be interested in anyone knowing where they are or what they're doing at that particular moment.
Yeah, but in the way Raglan just gets up, thanks to Chef, and deuces,
and zips
man.
right out the door. Yeah, it's very on brand. It's all very on brand.
Okay, so I want to talk about the pauses between Armand and Daniel here. Somebody called it out on the Facebook. There's 3 times we go back to the silence on his recorder on his computer, which I thought was cool. But even from the very beginning, Armand says, we should probably wait for him. And then Daniel's like, probably. Armand couldn't keep himself shut up for even a second, though. Just goes straight into his
He has to share his fanfic. He has to get his 50 Shades of Grey out into the world.
It's interesting to me, though, how he wraps that whole story up in a little bow once Louis actually comes back. And Daniel's like, I didn't ask how he got his heart broke. I asked how vampires stay off of Google. And he's like, but because you listened and were a good boy, you got both answers. I thought that was clever. is for Armand, this story had a purpose, and he was actually answering a question, but he just did it in this incredibly flowery and Riceian way.
It was actually, and it was really gorgeous. It was awesome to watch all that play out. That whole story, start to finish. I was like, okay, this is, and I wonder if it's the difference between, is he really telling his version of it as he sees it? Is he telling a version where he wants to paint himself in a better light? What is his motivation for whichever one of that or combination of the two it is? Because I do think some of what we see is real, for sure.
Well, okay. He gives Lestat his flowers several times during the story.
Yeah.
And Armand never... he says... He doesn't even say, actually, that Lestat leaves at the end. But he doesn't really... He doesn't refer to Lestat in a negative way all the way through it. It's Louis at the end that says Lestat will be blah, blah, blah for himself,
Right.
It was interesting to me.
And even
where are the lies exactly? And I do think there are some there, but they are very subtle.
Right. And I think even in the way the end, him leaving is painted, it's like, well, you told me you loved me. We shagged at the opera. We shagged at the play, and then I guess he just ghosted for a little while, which is just I know something more happened there. He didn't just wander off into the fog.
I posted a thing on Threads today, which that led to a conversation.
Welcome to Threads, Joel.
Well, so I was going to, so I personally have been on Threads since the beginning. I really love it. It's a nice Twitter replacement for me. I've curated it very handily, and so I get a lot of enjoyment out of there. But because I posted this thing today, that made me have a conversation with my wife, and it ended up we created a Threads account for Articulate Coven, a TikTok account, and an Instagram account. And so over time, we'll get all of the old shorts up in all those places, and probably in the future, you'll see me live threading my watch throughs of this show and Mayfair and
Oh, I love it. I'll jump
when I watch other genre stuff, it'll be on Threads as well. But what I posted was I had shared something from the AMC Immortal Universe account about this episode, some pictures of Lestat, I think, primarily. And I posted about how much it meant to me, this episode existing, and the way that it came out overall, how much I enjoyed it. But like this novel that we're getting glimpses of here, The Vampire Lestat, it's my favorite novel of all time. This character is my favorite literary character of all time. And to get this book adapted, even in a mini sort of told by another person version like we did in this episode, it's joyful, it's gleeful to me. I don't know how else to describe it. And I am fully expectant, and there's some good there was a great article shared in the Facebook group earlier today with some comments from Roland Jones. Y'all, he's not locked up somewhere. He's just not in the episode insiders. But he did an interview where he discussed this episode specifically and called out a lot of people were surprised that Gabrielle wasn't included at all or mentioned. And he goes, Gabrielle's in the show, guys. She's just not in this episode. And when we get to season 3, you'll get Gabrielle. He even says Gabrielle's basically the main character of season 3 in a lot of ways, along with Lestat.
To me, her presence in this episode would not have made sense in the way that it was presented, in the way that we're rolling, and with the characters that we know. It would have been too much to add to. It would have required too much exposition and explanation. And what we got instead is this really, really beautiful, intense version of this story. And I love Lestat is as captivating and as magical and unbelievable on stage as I have ever imagined him to be, and to hear Nikki playing with increasing like sadness and desperation and anger in the orchestra, like that was incredible to see the two of them meet Armand was amazing. Like it's just like, it doesn't have to be the whole story yet. We're going to get it. And we're going to get a really good version of the whole story when we get that. But like in the meantime, these little morsels are better than I could have possibly dreamed them to be.
Well, I mean, that's what I said. To quote Jacob Anderson's Louis, if this was all that we had of this adaptation, it would be enough, honestly. Like I am, since 94, I've been dreaming of seeing this story played out on screen, and we got some of it, and
we got that red velvet cape.
Oh my God. Anyway, okay, let's break down a few of these things in particular. We can talk about the whole scene because it really does mean so much to me. But we talked about giving him his flowers, Armand giving him his flowers. Right at the top, he says, we were shadows crouching behind stone prior to his transformation. Wow. Again, like, beautiful language throughout this thing, but that's an example.
Yeah.
Armand's got a turn of phrase, and right there he's saying, we were lost. I was lost. I didn't know what I was going to do with my life, or my coven was slowly dwindling away and had been for basically 200 years, and then Lestat shows up. Okay, now, all of this praise aside, I'm going to pick probably the biggest nit of the entire series so far, except maybe Lestat speaking to Louis telepathically that one time right after Louis was turned. So far, that's the biggest one. This one might be more. Armand refers to Magnus as one of his deserters.
Oh yes, that is true. And that is not the way our Magnus came to be.
I mean, now here's how I'm writing it off in my head. Armand does not want to get into the Marius of it all at this point. And since Magnus's creation inherently has to do with Marius, maybe he just wrote it all. Okay, so where did Lestat come from? He came from somebody that left my coven. That cannot be. Magnus is too big a character in too many ways, and his story is too interesting and too unique. Please don't let that be the truth of this universe. There we go. I'm putting that pin in there.
I will say it did not bother me as much, and I will only say that because it can make connectivity happen in a different way that's easier for maybe non-readers to like wrap their head around, as far as like who came from who, and it makes everybody seem a little more interconnected in a way. But yeah, it is it is a very big shift from what we know of Magnus.
I love Armand just admitting it right up on Front Street. They were all in love with him. He had that effect on everyone.
Yeah.
And then you see it in his eyes too. Like from moment one, Armand wanted
is just
this
captivated.
Yeah.
Yeah, just captivated by him. Well, you have to think like this is the first bright, shiny thing they've all seen in so long. And he's one of them. And he's living in a way that they haven't even allowed themselves to imagine, for whatever stupid rules they're following that somebody made up before they were even born, let alone turned into a vampire.
I do like that Armand calls out specifically that the rules were set up to protect them from humans.
Yes.
You know, like they seem so restrictive. It's so that they live unnoticed. You know?
Yeah, and all of the rules make good sense. Like their rules aren't like, especially like when you get down to like our current Coven and what their rules are, their great laws. That makes sense. Like you don't want to. All of those things can bring notice to you when you do not want any notice brought to you or your group. You know.
Man, right there in the introduction when Armand's in the theater for the first time, he gets so close to saying preternatural. I thought he was going to. So Daniel says he was a natural, and Louis and Armand says he was perfectly unnatural. I guarantee you there was an argument in the writer's room about whether or not to use
preternatural. Yeah, perfectly natural even kind of sounds like preternatural.
Yes.
Perfectly natural, preternatural. You know, it sounds like if you were talking fast, it would slide right in there.
Okay, so the whole flashback sequence, I mean, obviously Armand's narration to Daniel is in English, but the whole flashback sequence was in French. And I had this whole thing set aside to be like, oh, how great that is. And like, obviously it makes sense that it wouldn't be in English. And I'm so glad they did this. I hope they do that with season 3, et cetera, et cetera. And then there's a lot of good commentary on our Facebook group about this from some French speakers, actually. And
right.
I had never even occurred to me, but you pointed it out. You're like, wow, as bad as Bailey's accent, Southern accent, bothered us in season 1, like
right.
Imagine a whole episode of that in your own native language.
And in your native language, not even just like your dialect, but like just your native language.
Right. And I mean, God bless them. Obviously, these actors are
It
trying
sounded
and doing
so
a good
good
job.
to me.
Yeah.
Look, listen, I don't speak French. My half-ass second language is Spanish. And I was like completely captivated by what they were doing. And I love that they went that hard. I really do. I didn't dream they would do half a fucking episode in French. That's crazy.
I didn't either. And I mean, in retrospect, there's a whole lot of Romanian and German in in episode 1. Or
that's
I say
true.
German, Russian and Romanian.
That's true. It's true.
So anyway, I don't know what the right thing to do is here. I mean, obviously they're making it for an English audience. I think there is something to be said for doing it in French, especially if in season 3 you get the flashback stories in small doses like this combined with a modern day story, which I can't imagine they wouldn't do. So I don't know.
Well, and my thing too is that they'll take the note. I guarantee you they've seen what people are saying, and they'll take the note and they'll work on it. And if that's what they intend to do with season 3, then they will it will be improved. I guarantee you. You know, like that's something they'll put some effort into.
So little Nikki. We speculated, in the lead up to this season, how much we were going to get of this story. I think that may be all the Nikki that we see this season.
Yeah, I honestly think that's probably it.
And that makes me a little bummed, but at the same time, like I do feel confident that we will get season 3. Where's that goddamn confirmation though?
Right. We are dying for it. Please and thank you. I really was hoping after this episode we'd get it really quick. And maybe because it's a holiday weekend we haven't. But please and thank you, Joel and Ashley would like a confirmation.
Okay, so I have a theory here and we'll talk about it later. Actually, at the end of my rewatch today, I thought we're not going to get a confirmation, and I'll tell you why in a little bit. Okay.
Okay.
This dramatic bitch Lestat kicks the door into the Coven, carrying a fucking crucifix out of the church over his shoulder. And
that Jesus was as tall as me.
Right?
That Jesus was as tall as me. I stand at roughly 5 feet tall, and I guarantee you I was the size of that Christ.
when somebody calls it out, he laughs and goes, "Do you mean this sad man with the nails?"
He's so bad. I love it. See, and that doesn't seem like it's not Lestat.
No, it's exactly what he does.
Is Lestat, and that's why I was so like. What was so interesting about this version of the story is that so much of it really did feel like him. I don't know that Armand was lying very much about what Lestat did and said. You know. Well, I think it was lying about probably what he did and said, but like.
You're right. Some of that was downplayed. I think you're right. Let's see, where was he? Oh, okay. His words had been my thoughts for half a century. So this is sort of true in the book as well. Like, Armand was lost and tired of his life with the Coven for a long time before Lestat showed up. He didn't know any other way to be than a rule follower, honestly, as part of it, and like structure and order. And so he railed against Lestat's existence at first, and they fought for a long time, and et cetera. But the way that it plays out here is honestly very true to the novel.
Right, it is. I was very surprised that I didn't feel more like I was being manipulated.
Okay, here's another good example though of how they're doing some things wrong on this show. Armand says he's talking to Daniel in the modern day, and they're talking about what happened to the Coven after Lestat broke it all up. And he said, a lot of them went around, they caused a lot of havoc in Paris. Mm-hmm. Some of them couldn't make sense of this life that Lestat had shown them versus what I had taught them, and they went mad. They ended themselves. And then immediately cut to commercial break. Listen.
Oh, yeah.
This show is full of funny lines, guys, like tension-breaking moments. That's where you put the fucking commercial break. And I know you know how to do it because you do it later. I'll call it out when we get there. Don't even worry about it. But like,
there were a couple of really jarring cuts. Yeah,
yes.
There were. And I can't even imagine, because I'm watching it. I don't have the commercials in it. I'm watching it on AMC Plus. And so I don't have any of the commercials in it, but you still get the cuts. And I can't imagine like how messy it would be if it was like, I just watched this intense shit happen and now it's Geico.
Okay, on that note, just one note, because we did get some more feedback from somebody who has purchased the season pass or whatever they call it on, like, I think they had bought it on Amazon or Vudu or something. I'm going to go do that pretty soon on Apple myself. It's on sale right now, I think, for like $19.99, $24.99, something like that for the season, and you get all the episodes. I know last season I bought it after the season had already finished, and it was on sale, I think, at one point for $9.99 or something like that. But anyway, those purchased versions seem to not only not have the commercial cuts, they don't have the cut to black like that for a commercial break, but they also have more language. And if you go check out on our Facebook group, somebody shared two different scenes. The scene where Lestat is singing, Dreamstat is singing in the cafe over Armand and Louis' date.
That was fantastic.
Very, very funny scene. We'll talk about that in a minute. But there's more language in that clip that they got online than there is in the version that airs on cable, but also the version on AMC Plus. So apparently what they are doing now in season 1, what we watched on AMC Plus was released early, and it was the quote unquote uncensored version of the show. And then later it got replaced with the standard AMC run of the show, but also they've got an uncensored version that you can go and watch on AMC Plus now, but it was like after the fact. So for season 2, they are feeding us the same version from cable, and then also later, one imagines, you'll be able to stream the uncensored version on AMC Plus, but it's not available, day one. So that's what we're noticing here, the difference. And apparently, if you go back and watch the standard version of season 1 on AMC Plus, it also has these bad commercial breaks cut into it. So there you go.
Bastards.
Yeah, I know, right?
Bastards making me have a subscription and buy the series.
I know. On the flip side,
But
though,
I'm going to do it. You know
yes,
I'm going to.
I'm going to pump so much money at Rollin Jones
Yeah.
and Mark Johnson and his...
Y'all, there's some cute T-shirts in the shop right now, just so you
Are
know.
there? Oh, man.
There's a
some
real
really
cute
ones.
Lestat Pride shirt. I love it.
Okay, so we come back from the commercial break. Armand's old sad ass is sitting here drinking his own blood. Like, what a better way to show how lonely and depressed he
How
is.
depressed you are. Anyone, I just sit around and drink my own blood.
And then Lestat, like, creeping up in the corner. Come
It was
to
such
me, my
a
darling.
good. It was such a good like visual though. He just kind of like the breath of the candle almost. It was really cool. I really loved the way he just kind of came together.
Okay, see, this scene was the first one for me that played as false. I do not have any doubt that Lestat was compelled by Armand. He is in the novels, early especially. I have no doubt that Lestat was interested in knowledge or power that Armand had that Lestat didn't have yet. That's absolutely true for book Lestat.
Right.
But like this Lestat was coming in there bricked up for Armand, and that ain't what flips Lestat's boat.
I think Lestat would want to throw him into a bathtub first and foremost, and give him a little.
Yeah, they'd get out of the sewer.
Like, you gotta get out of the sewer, kids. You can't fuck in the catacombs.
Man. Okay, I love the way that Lestat explains the theater idea to Armand as he's acting his ass off at center stage. Armand and Santiago do this again later in a clearly
So much of this
mirrored
episode, and it happens with, not on stage, but when Louis and Claudia are talking about, like, she's decided, yeah, we need to, like, really, really firm up our story about Bruce, and he's freaking out in his photo lab, in his dark room.
Yes.
That's all that way too. So there's a lot of this episode that's done like with psychic conversation, but the cool thing is about those stage ones when they're on stage is that they're still doing their stage business. And to split your mind like that, like I know that that's not how they really did it, you know. I know that they didn't have to split their minds. They did one thing and then they did the other.
The ADR was on a different day.
Right. That's a different day, and I get that in my brain because I understand the way film and television work. But that fucking blew my mind so hard, and I was like, I love that they're forcing us to like split our focus like this. I love that. I literally loved everything about both of those moments so much. It was so cool to me. It was so interesting the way that what my brain wanted to do and what my brain wanted to listen to, and like how much I felt myself being drawn back into like, I want to see what is he saying in this performance, you know? It was so wild. It was so wild. I loved it. I will say it was even more acute with Santiago because he had more lines he was speaking in his actor mode. And so I was just really like, and I can't stop watching him. He is just fucking captivating. Well, like he is.
You got to remember too, in that version, in the Santiago scene, he's also spellbinding the human at the same time.
Right. How many balls does he have in the air? Like, that is some fucking Jedi Master shit. You know, like he is working magic on so many different levels at that moment. It's crazy, and I love it. And it shows like he's the youngest, but man, he's got some chops, and he's got some very interesting. I've never liked Santiago before, so this is a new experience for me too, you know.
Well, he is a thoroughly enjoyable character in this.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. Like, I don't know that I would say that I like Santiago, but thoroughly enjoyable to watch.
I'm fascinated. I'm fascinated by him.
And the way that played out is like a perfect example of how powerful the vampiric mind is. You know, in the novels, Anne does a great job of this. Is it's like, you know, they generally, unlike in this series, they often have photographic memories, for instance, and they have, you know, perfect recall of different circumstances.
Right.
And they can move faster than we can and things like that. But the idea that their brain can process faster, that you could literally carry on two conversations, makes perfect sense in the novels. I love that the way that they did it here. And also the mirrored meaning of the Coven, of you realizing the Coven is in on the conversation, both times. In the opening, you get this gleeful smiles as they turn to face Matra, and it's like a bunch of theater kids. Let's put on a show, boss.
Yeah,
it's awesome. And then in the final, it's like, do you speak for the Coven? And the Coven turns their head to say, yeah, motherfucker, he speaks for us. It's like, ooh,
yeah,
so good, so good.
It's two very different scenarios, and it's so well done. It was such a great bookend. I really loved those scenes. Loved them.
Somebody called this out in one of the commentary, one of the threads about this episode, but Lestat would never have eaten up all the actors, though. He loved that troupe in the book.
He did love them. He loved them very much.
Time in his life. It's the happiest time in his life before Magnus finds him, But
can I say, I loved that scene.
Oh, yeah, it was fun.
He definitely would not have done that. That is not our Lestat, but that was fucking fun.
Okay.
It was like the mansion scene, the party scene in last episode.
Lestat absolutely would have made out with Armand in the balcony while Nikki was watching that.
Oh, 110% of the time he would do that. Yes.
And
with
dude,
people on either side, he doesn't give a shit.
Armand's like, here, now, scandalized a little bit. And Lestat goes, it's a roomy box.
Yeah, he does. This is such a perfect version of this character. Sam Reed is just unbelievable. I don't know how we got so lucky.
So here's my money. This is what I'm betting on. Lestat didn't abandon anything. He didn't abandon the Coven. He didn't abandon Louis. He didn't abandon Nikki. He didn't abandon Armand. Armand told him by this point, Armand had told him about Marius.
And that's why he
refused to go with Lestat to find him. So Lestat is leaving on his journey for a master and meaning and et cetera, and
totally agree with that.
Isn't getting into that. And here's the other option, and it would be different than the timeline of the books, but based on the fact that Gabrielle wasn't in this episode at all, what if Lestat had suddenly gotten word that his mother was dying and rushes off at this point to save her, quote unquote?
Oh, shit. Well, and that could be why some people expected to see her.
Right.
I mean, that could be it. That could totally be it. Because I didn't really get I don't know, and maybe I'm just not remembering the Vampire Lestat as well as I could right now. The book, it didn't seem like, I was like, where would it make sense for her to be in this?
So by the time he confronts Armand and the Coven, he's already created both Nikki and Gabrielle. They're both vampires already at that point before the fights with Armand really come to a head. So
right.
It would have made sense if she was there in that respect. It would have been weird. Oh, and by the way, he made his mom a vampire at some point. Like, to rush all of that.
How much trouble can you possibly get into with the new Coven that you just met?
Right.
Poor Claudia rolling in, having broken accidentally every rule they have.
Oh my God. Okay. All right. There's such a cool moment for me. I don't know about you, Ashley, but we get this moment where Santiago's on stage and then you realize he's mic'd, and then you go backstage and Claudia is back there listening to the monitors and admiring his performance, basically.
Yes. Love it.
I had such fucking nostalgia. I'm like, when was the last time I was waiting for a cue on a monitor backstage? Like, that is
so good.
Such a thing. But okay, I went down such a rabbit hole on this, Ashley, and I know we've got a lot of theater kids and a lot of literary nerds in this audience. Maybe somebody can help me. Okay, when I was in college, this was like my fifth year, my senior year.
on that tenure track.
Right. We did I was on the tenure track. Absolutely. We did a performance of 6 characters in search of an author. Okay. And I played a pimp character. He's never referred to as a pimp in the script, but it was clear that was the relationship. He's been prostituting the daughter character among the 6 characters. And in the play, I don't come into the play until like the very, very end. So I'm sitting backstage for like an hour and 15, hour and 20 minutes. And then I come on for like maybe 5 to 10 minutes. And
that was my doll's house.
Right? I storm out of the audience. Like I go through the house and out the front doors of the audience. And then I'm gone, and I don't come back on stage for the curtain call. So it was a great gig. It was the best gig ever. You got one like really sassy scene, and then that's it. But I was thinking about this today, thinking about Claudia backstage, listen to the monitors. And so I was like, what is that character's name? So I Googled it. Okay. In 6 Characters in Search of an Author, that character is named Madame Pace, Pace. She speaks in very broken English, which is true for the character that I played, but I played it as a man. It was a pimp. It wasn't Madame anything. I'm guessing his name was something Pace, but anyway, I Googled for a long time today, Ashley. I can't find any version of this play anywhere that's played as a male character. Like, maybe Gilbert just made that up?
Just did a gender swap. We did a whole gender swapped version of Tartuffe, so I would not have put it past
That's a good point. That's a good point. Okay. Anyway, if you know that play and you're familiar with that at all, and if you've ever seen anyone do it where Madame Pace is a man, please let me know. I was unsuccessful finding anything about that. That's a very cool moment.
That's a very, very Gilbert thing to do, actually.
It's, but that isn't it fun? Like those moments when you find, especially in a long run of something, right? Like you do summer theater, for instance, and you've got that like 5-minute stretch where you're in the dressing room and you get to just enjoy, such and such as soliloquy. Like, yeah, it's beautiful. And you hear, especially over a long run, you hear the ranges in delivery, and you're like, man, they found something new tonight. Man, the audience is so hot, or it's dead out there, or whatever. Anyway.
Yeah, no, it's the coolest. It's a magic that you only experience, that only a certain group of people get to experience. Like there's so many people that in their lives that will never ever know exactly what that kind of thing feels like, and we are very lucky that we do, because it is a special kind of magic. And it also, like, I think something like a theater troupe, which we've discussed, like, there's this forced intimacy, it's who you're around, it's who you're with, it's who you date, it's who you marry, and it's your family. It's this family that you have, good, bad, or ugly. And I think that that's one of the things that for Claudia, who's looking for something more, who's looking for acceptance, who's looking to be taken for herself, the idea of this, it's a family, and I just love the way that that's mirrored in that interesting way between like a theatrical family and what that means, and then a real family, real air quotes family,
Ashley, do vampires get allergies?
No.
One of the Coven sneezes backstage, and it was distressing.
Bitch, listen. If I have hay fever, if I get turned into a fucking vampire, and I get fucking allergies, I am lighting someone on fire. Like, I would be so pissed. Like, you're supposed to be the best version of yourself. Yes, the best version of myself is not allergic to pollen.
Yeah, I strongly agree. Okay, I called it out earlier. Here it is. We get a good commercial break here. Excellent placement. Daniel he's getting the buzzes on his computer from Raglan James.
Oh, man.
He's distracted. He tries to play it off. Well, something you said made me think of, and Louis is like, think of what? And Daniel has nothing, and so he finally goes, "Where was Claudia? What was Claudia doing at this stage of things?" And Louis and Armand both just sort of stare at him, and it cuts to commercial. That's the way you fucking do it, and then come back to what Claudia's doing. That makes perfect sense. It's a tension breaking moment. It's light. It's humorous. That's where you can put a Burger King commercial in, folks. You know how to do
100%.
this. Do it right from now on.
The Geico Gecko goes there.
Okay. Speaking of, they know how to do it. Santiago fucking knows, Ashley. Santiago is plotting to kill these two. I think from the beginning.
That scene with Claudia backstage is so terrifying.
Right?
Because he is so there's something so going on right under the surface that she doesn't see, that's simmering there. But he's being so charming and so alluring and interesting and interested in her and supporting her, and you're almost there, like, we're almost there, and yes, he's fucking gonna kill her. Like, it's so horrifying, and she has no idea.
Well, and we even know why.
She's so caught up in this that she doesn't even think to look deeper. She's not even thinking to, like, dig into these guys' brains. She's older than him.
Yes. Yes,
she's fucking
absolutely.
older than him, and she's not trying to dig into his brain. She's just listening to what he's saying to her. And that's what's so wild to me, is that she's just missing all these signals. And I know she's smarter than that, but it's that need to belong, that need for a family, that's just blinding her to what's going on around her.
Well, and I mean, and she even she gives us the clues herself. She asks, weren't you made by Matra? No, why would you say that? She goes, well, you're the youngest, but you're so strong.
Right.
You must have got the best blood.
The best blood.
And I mean, he says no, but what he means there is not that he didn't get the best blood. What he means is, I didn't get Matra's blood. And,
right.
And what we find out is that Armand has boxed up Santiago's maker. So this is it. Santiago understands that Armand likes these two little playthings. In particular, he likes Louis, and he is going to burn both of them, I think, very clearly. From moment go, he's plotting exactly how to arrange this so that he can punish Armand in this way for the slight that he feels still.
Well, and he has, let's be real. I mean, I could see him, even though he is younger than Armand, he's older than Armand, as a man. So I also think that there's this level of, like, he has this feeling that he should be senior to or higher than, especially with his standing in the troupe and as the lead actor and all of that. I think there's a lot that goes into that wanting to take control. And this is a way Armand almost certainly put his master in a box in some way to, like, quell something within him, to control him. And if that's the case, then of course he knows he can manipulate him in the same way, because he wouldn't have had the idea to do that if it wouldn't have worked on him,
Yes, 100%. Ashley, I did not have a Jean-Paul Sartre cameo on my dance card. But there it was in the middle of the episode. He turns around. By the way, I love Jean-Paul Sartre turns around and tells Armand and Louis that they're too fucking philosophical. Shut up and enjoy the jazz.
Shut up and enjoy the jazz. Hilarious. Hell is other
so
people.
Good. So good. So good.
Yeah.
Okay. Let's talk about So Good too. Lestat's Weird Al take on his own song for Louis is fucking rich.
Oh my God. And him talking through it. Talking to the lady in the front row.
I love when he calls out his own good lyric. He's like, that's a good one, actually.
That's a good one. Yes.
Breath of that.
I love it. I love it. Also, his voice is, like, velvety smooth. Like, He's so
perfect. He's so good.
I know. He is perfection.
Okay, and here's another thing, though, that we get in this episode in the flashback. And maybe this isn't true, but the implication from Armand's story is that Lestat cribbed the title of that song he wrote for Louis from Armand's pitch for Lestat. Like, Armand does the "Come to Me," and 150 years later, Lestat's like, "That's a good line. Let me write a song about that."
Let me write a song about that. Yeah.
That son of a bitch.
I mean, all that tracks.
Okay, and again, this is Dreamstat, and there was a call out in the Facebook group. People are asking, like, how would Louis know anything? Because this is Louis's subconscious talking to him.
Right.
How would he know anything about 18th century Armand? I think this is just an example of Louis imagining Lestat being catty, right? So Lestat tries one more time to cut in on Louis and no, don't mention my name. Says, let me tell you something about 18th century Armand.
It's so funny. Oh, it's so great. So great. It was nice to have a few good moments of laughter in this episode, because I did feel so much of this was I mean, we know what we're leading up to. If you've read the books, we know we know where we're going. And so I feel like things are going a little faster than I expected them to almost. So I just like the tension in this episode really, really built for me. I was really happy to have some moments of levity whenever they popped up. The rat and the body in the basement in the box shit was so funny to me.
Yes. Oh my God. And
the body goes in
Irish
the side.
vampire.
Oh my God. I loved him. As someone said in the Facebook group, I'm sure he's going to do something absolutely horrific within the next several episodes that's going to make me really regret loving him. But right now, that was high entertainment for me.
Yeah, probably so. Man, okay, speaking of things that I did not really expect, they doubled down on the Bruce story from season 1.
Yes, they did.
And oof. I mean, okay, I had not imagined that Bruce had kept Claudia. I, in my head, had made this a violent attack. He beat her, he assaulted her sexually probably, and then left. And then she came home once she healed her wounds enough and had gotten over her, pride to not see Lestat again or whatever, had decided to come try to make a play for Louis and head to Europe.
Yeah.
The fact that she was literally held prisoner, was, folded up under the floorboards is a fucking savage look.
Yeah, just until he got tired of seeing her gloomy face.
Oof.
As though she was supposed to smile and be happy about what he was doing to her.
Right? Yeah. And
I have seen some people take a little bit of, like, not offense isn't the right word, but like they're taken a little bit aback by this storyline. And I just want to reiterate what I said earlier, which is that when we've discussed this episode twice now, or that episode twice, and it's something that every woman is aware of, and any woman, any man also, but like specifically in this scenario, we're talking about women and femmes can be affected by, on the record, 1 in 5 women. Off the record, tell me someone do you know a woman? Then you probably know someone who's been assaulted. And number one, it takes some of her power away, and they have to figure out a way to do that in a way that's true and makes sense, because she's not quite as young as she's supposed to be in the book. You know what I mean? And although this is a bummer of a thing and not everybody likes to read about it or hear about it or watch about it, it's a reality. And it is a great equalizer for women. You can think you're really strong, and you can think you're really powerful, and you can think you're really smart, and you can know all of those things, and you can be all of those things. And that doesn't mean that someone isn't stronger than you and isn't going to take advantage of that and isn't going to hurt you. Man or bear, you know what I mean? And I think that, I know it's uncomfortable and it's not necessarily something we want to see in popular culture as like a throwaway storyline, but I didn't feel like this was. And I just kind of want to reiterate my feelings about that, since, I'm a big opinionated mouthy woman.
Well, I'm so glad you did, but I agree. I feel like the circling back to it in this way, the fact that Bruce continues to be a figure in the storyline as we move forward here with the Coven, I think all of that matters. We talked about this last season. The character of Bruce exists into the modern day in the novels. There are patches on that storyline even into the Prince Lestat trilogy. So I don't know. I think this storyline is not over. So it wasn't just a throwaway thing. They didn't.
And I really do hate that I just said the great equalizer amongst women is violence, but no, it's true. I mean, like, I can't lie about what the reality of being a woman out in the world is,
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's like, well, yes. You've said it better than I can. All right, let's switch to a lighter topic. Who is buying the bacon paintings?
Who is buying the bacon paintings? Is it Marius? This is Marius's way? Has Armand stolen those who must be kept, and this is Marius's way of finding them again?
Oh, I didn't even think about that, but with the groan downstairs. Okay.
I mean, that's kind of a crazy thought. But that's sort of what popped into my head.
I am convinced that it's Marius. I don't know why Marius would need subterfuge to get back into Armand's life in some way, but I am convinced that this is Marius. It could also be a Lestat thing to do, but I feel like Marius is more the art collector.
Marius would go this route. Lestat would not go this route. Lestat would start a rock band.
Lestat would kick in the penthouse door with a crucifix.
Exactly.
Ashley.
Like that's not his style. His style is not to inquire about your artwork, sir. Like that's not his game.
Okay. Man, they're reading the 5 laws to Claudia downstairs. First of all, that whole scene was very cool. I thought the initiation was neat. But they're reading the 5 laws, and I'm just in my head. I'm hearing them, and I'm going, "Oh, they broke
Check.
all them laws."
Check. I
mean,
it's
so
like that. Never have I ever. How many points do you get at the end of this quiz?
So they haven't broken the. Well, I mean, technically, Claudia in season 1 tried to make some other vampires, so she even broke that one. But let's give her. She didn't make any successfully, so they haven't broken the one where only.
And she didn't make a child vampire.
Yeah, only the Coven leader has the ability to make a new vampire. But at the same time, we know they're going to break that one because Madeline's in this show already. Like
right.
She's going to be around. So anyway, that was a very foreboding scene for me, that whole thing. And
it's so creepy, scary.
With the dress reveal. And we had seen this dress in trailers, but honestly, Ashley, I had not put 2 and 2 together.
I hadn't either. It's
that she was going to be so disgusted by it.
Horrifying. Like there's part of me that would think that's really fun. Like I do improv every week. I do improv comedy. I play a lot of like funny little kid characters. I've done tons of children's theater. I've played kids a lot, like that is fun to me. But for her, Jesus Christ, what a curse. You know what I mean? To like, have to dress up like a child, a baby.
Ashley, I thought of you this week. In one of your many past lives, you were a Disney cast member. And,
I was.
And a costumed performer on site, right?
Yeah.
Okay, have you seen the viral video where they're talking about the fact that a lot of the current costumed characters that are going viral for their performances are probably gay men? And the two examples that I saw were Elastigirl like spinning on her cycle.
Oh my God.
A Clarabelle who was like serving it 100%.
Yeah. Clarabelle's gonna be like Goofy height. So Clarabelle's gonna be not to ruin Disney magic for anyone, but a gentleman. Generally speaking, or a very tall broad, which is also excellent, and I love. Yeah. Well, I also saw that that there was a lawsuit about somebody had groped one of the characters, and I also too experienced that at Disney.
Oh my goodness.
Oh yeah, people get wild, and it was old ladies. They would get wild. Like wild. I'm pretty sure this was like a 60-plus-year-old lady that like
trying to grab a little Gaston. I mean, Goofy. Oh my goodness.
Yeah, it was Goofy, and for me, it was she wondered if Mickey was a girl. Man, no, thank you. It is. Thank you for asking.
Since we're talking about cast members, I will say this: acknowledge. Did you see that the Disneyland cast members have filed for union?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we love our unions.
I love it. Job. We are huge union supporters, and I will say that Disney characters, I know at Walt Disney World, have been protected under union rules. Are protected by union rules depending on where you work, because you work with union performers. Like, so if you're on parade and things like that, then it's kind of a different experience. So, but it's very exciting to see the whole group get some union representation. I love it. I can't spill too many Disney secrets. They'd never have me back.
No, absolutely. Okay, we were talking about foreboding lines. Armand to Louis in the sewers. She won't be here long.
Yeah.
She won't be here long.
This scene was so intense.
Right?
Oh my God. And I mean, like nothing like this. Really, I couldn't have pictured something this intense between the two of them, and that Louis really thinks he's about to die.
I mean, I know how this story goes. And obviously Louis sitting there beside Armand in the present day. But even I was like, how did they resolve this? Like,
right.
Armand's clearly going to kill him in this sewer. What the hell?
And then he takes him home. Like you're 19 years old in college and making bad choices again. Come on now.
I mean,
that's
Jacob
not the guy.
Anderson has the get out of jail free card with a booty call, I guess, man. I don't know.
Yeah, it's it was, that stressed me the hell out. And then he's like, "Oh, we're at my house. Cool, come on in." What the fuck, dude? Like, what are we doing?
So Armand didn't say preternatural earlier, but he does say Savage Garden here, baby.
Yes, he does. With his hand on fire.
Man, Lestat just has the best. I mean, and this is Anne, obviously, but the words that we make fun of preternatural because she uses it so much, just like, God, the organ, whenever she's talking about penises, she uses that all the time too.
Well,
or
and
sex.
anytime I hear preternatural used by something other, like somewhere else besides Anne Rice, like I'm always like, I always have a giggle, like, because it is such a funny, like, overused thing. But yes, the organ. His organ.
But here we talked in previous episodes about like how well named the cloud gift and the mind gift and the calling vampiric powers gifts, I think is perfect based on the lore that she's created and the universe that she's created. But here too, like Savage Garden is nice, man.
Yeah,
and the fact that
it's
Armand
beautiful.
Again gives Lestat his flowers for saying it. You know, how did he say it? Savage. What did he call it? The Savage Garden. Yes. Mm-hmm. I love it. Okay, Louis got a fucking badass line here though. Don't give up on her. Tell her she's beautiful.
Oh,
Tell her that every morning.
Every morning.
Oh, man. Because
Armand's whole thing is like, she can't last. She doesn't have the fortitude to live through this because of when she was made. You know, she will not last through the centuries. I know this. And he's right. She probably would not have been able to.
Well, and we get it in the teaser for next episode. In particular, this scenario that she's gotten herself in with the theater is going to break her, you know?
Yeah. It's horrifying. That's so horrifying.
Armand finally admits the previous relationship with Lestat. Louis saying he doesn't know if he's ever going to get over it. And Armand says, "You will. I did." And Louis goes, "You and him?" And Armand, I love the way that this plays out. He says, "A century or so ago, yesterday, what is time to a vampire?"
Yeah.
Boy, isn't that how a breakup feels? Or, I mean, you're a lost loved one, right? My dad passed away. It's like 2.5 years ago now, but sometimes it feels like last Tuesday, you know?
Absolutely. 100%. That's a really good example. I lost my dad in 2001 and it's yesterday. It's a minute ago.
But it's also a century ago. Yes.
Yeah. So it is. And I mean, I think, time really has no meaning, and I love leaning into that concept because time and space are so strange sometimes, and a year is a minute and a year is 3 years. Like, I'll never forget how long March 2020 was. Like, March 2020 was the March that lasted for like 10 months.
Man, okay, I just rewatched the Disney movie Old Yeller the other day.
I saw that pop up from your
It's so good. It's so good, by the way. It's such a good movie.
Jesus, Joel.
The end of it is every bit as affecting as you remember it being, though.
Oh, God.
Okay, but at the very end, Dad comes back finally from the cattle drive, right? And he gets the story from Mom about Old Yeller, and he goes out to see the older son who's building the burial mound or whatever. And at first he says something to the effect of, that's the kind of story that happens to a man, son. And I'm so sorry that it happened to you, but you just got to move past it and get back to being a man or something like that. And then they go deeper. And the dad's basically like, you know what? You're right. I don't know that you do want to forget it. But he says this fucking fantastic thing, and I'm going to absorb it because I think it is so perfectly said. He tells the kid, "Can I tell you something that's helped me in the past? When you start looking around for something good to take the place of the bad, as a general rule, you can find it." And like, that's so fucking simple, but also it's true. When you start looking around for something good to take the place of the bad, as a general rule, you can find it. If you're looking for happiness, you can in fact find it. If you're looking for sadness, and I think in this show and in our personal life, absolutely, Ashley, we've talked about people who are those gloomy Gusses, right? Nothing ever good happens, and all they have is complaints. They want to hang themselves up on that fucking cross with the sad man and the nails. But like, if you want to live a life where you find excitement and joy and good things, you can make that for yourself. And I think this is sort of what Armand is saying there. For him, it took 150 years because Armand's a gloomy Gus too.
Right.
But like, you and I, we could build a life. We could move past this. We could be, it's interesting. Armand asks Louis in that scene, did he break you?
Yeah.
And Louis doesn't know. He says, I don't know, basically. But I think there's a part of Armand that was expecting to hear yes, and he would have been super excited to hear it, honestly.
Right, because then that's
the way that Armand feels, right?
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. I the dynamic between these two characters and what these actors are bringing to it is just even more deep and interesting than I've ever found it, if I'm being really honest, as far as relationships of characters in these books go. I find I've never found Armand and Louis to be as interesting as I've found other pairings. You know what I mean? But
no.
We're getting to see a very different side of both of these characters, and it serves them both very well. It serves the characters very well, because it gives you a different perspective on this journey and how they end up together, how they end up where they are, even how they end up getting past what happens, what's going to happen, 2-3 episodes down the road. So I am especially knowing how they separate in the 94 movie, they just right after the Coven burns and they separate, it's done. And
they go to the museum and they decide they don't like the same paintings and they break up.
And then they're done. Yes, that's what happens. One of them doesn't get in the carriage, unlike in Bridgerton. So, so I am. It's serving both of these characters so well to have more story. I'm never going to be mad about you giving me a little bit more about characters that I've always found interesting, but maybe haven't ever really seen in that light before. And I like Armand and Louis. I love Louis. Armand is, a handful, but
yeah. No,
I think a lot about, his past and like what happened to him, and that's a lot,
This scene did more for that relationship than any scene from the books, honestly, to me.
Yeah.
Like the way this
I
played
agree.
out. I'm in on Armand and Louis right now.
Well, it makes
I will
sense.
say,
it makes sense why they're drawn to each other.
What is Armand going to tell Santiago when he goes?
Yeah, what's Armand
home?
going to fucking do?
You're right. Like
how
what
are you
going to
do?
Out?
Yeah, yeehaw, we're about to find out.
Okay, last week, Ashley, I made a joke on our Facebook page about how Mark Johnson is opening these episode insiders. This show is about vampires, and vampires are cool because they drink blood. And then he fucking did it this week, Ashley. He opens the thing and goes, this show is called No Pain, and it's ironic because it's all about pain. Yeah, somebody send Mark Green to the green room and get him Mark Johnson to the green room and give him a nice cocktail and take him out of my fucking episode insiders.
Yeah.
Okay. Also, we go this whole episode. There's the Raglan James storyline introduced here. No one ever says the word Talamasca. We get to the episode insider, and Mark Johnson goes, "The Talamasca are very important."
Right. And they even say they're not even mentioned in this episode.
Right? Like, what are you doing, man? Like, maybe leave that until it comes up in the show. I don't know. I didn't love that. I understand why they did it, but like,
you have to say Beetlejuice 3 times before.
Yeah. Okay. All right. So I speculated earlier about the season renewal for season 3 and why we might not get it. All right. All throughout this episode Insider, they used the same language. They kept referring to the next book. Several different people did it. The next book, referencing the Vampire Lestat being semi-adapted in this episode. They are fucking doing it, y'all. I'm doubling down. The next season is going to be called The Vampire Lestat. and we're not going to get a renewal announcement until the end of season 2.
Because they're going to be like, we're introducing a brand new show. It's the Vampire
Not just
that.
But look, it's literally going to happen because it'll be revealed at the end of the season that he's still alive in the modern day, right? Like that'll be the end of the season 3, the Vampire Lestat. And that'll be the renewal announcement. They're going to keep it secret. Like, it's not the same thing exactly, but look at what Marvel is doing right now. They're working on the Thunderbolts movie is coming out. It's basically like the bad guys Avengers or whatever. Okay. But in the press, they have started acknowledging that the Thunderbolts logo now has an asterisk at the end of Thunderbolts. And if you ask Feige, like, why is the asterisk there suddenly? And he goes, it's all we have to say about it until after the movie comes out. It's because when the movie comes out, at the end of the thing, it's going to be Secret Avengers or Dark Avengers or some shit like that.
Right.
And that's the same thing they're doing here. The reveal will come at the end of the season. They'll show us a thing that's happening in the show, and that will lead to the title of the 3rd season being the Vampire Lestat. So I think that's the wait.
I don't think our blood pressure can handle it, is all I'm saying. It's fine. We'll be fine. We're going to make it. What a treat.
I do think our blood pressure can handle it, Ashley. I'm a very healthy man.
I do want to say Delaney was so good in this episode.
She's great. She's so wonderful. Like, honestly, we didn't mind Bailey's performance. Like we
I
negged on her about
her.
the accent, but she was great in the role too. Delaney is such an upgrade. I was under the impression that this was literally just about like scheduling conflicts and things. Bailey's got to go make the next Avatar movie or whatever.
Right,
but like,
right.
I mean,
She's
it might have been that they just found a better Claudia, y'all.
She's fantastic. She's really, really great. Her being the way she's in love with the theater, I love it because I know we know how that feels like to be backstage and listening to the lines and just say the lines, mutter them under your breath, or to be able to mouth them along. Like it's such a beautiful, cool thing to be a part of, and it is a cult too. It's like it's its own coven. Your theater family is your little coven, your cult. So I think I love that juxtaposition.
And it's gonna be so much worse when
it's gonna get so much worse. Yeah, it's gonna be awful. It's gonna be fucking terrible, and they're gonna drag it out too, because that's the thing. We know they're gonna drag it out at least a little bit. They intend to drag it out for her at least a little bit.
Well, and we know that the way that the timeline lines up so far from what we've been told about the dates, the diaries of Claudia that we've seen, et cetera, the way that the years line up, this doesn't happen right away. This doesn't resolve next episode.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I don't know, man. It's going to get sour here for our main characters. How much more, if any, Lestat backstory do you imagine that we're going to get before the end of this season?
I don't think very much more.
Yeah, I don't think
we might get a little taste, but I don't think we're really going to get any, except for maybe just a little glimmer, unless something makes sense to give a big flash. But I really don't think that we're going to get much, unless at some point Lestat's going to refute something Armand has said. I don't think we're going to get to see any of that.
Yeah, I think we are mostly going to be Dreamstat until Lestat shows up in Paris, and I do think that's going to happen. But I think I would not be surprised if he doesn't actually get there in person until the final episode or the next to the last episode.
Yeah, maybe penultimate. Yeah, maybe towards the end of the penultimate, I could see that being a thing. I do want to say too, like, fucking Santiago right now is like my most valuable player. His performance is just delectable. He chews the scenery just so, and he is absolutely terrifying and also completely likable, which is so fucking weird for me in this character.
Right. No, well, okay. So speaking of that, you and I last week called out the obvious, inspiration that he was drawing from the MC Joel Grey in Cabaret. But Erica Robert Paulo posted an article where he talks about some of his inspirations, and he specifically referenced, for the look especially, and his mannerisms, a lot of them come from Peter O'Toole.
Yeah,
he was referencing, basically that he had the best Hamlet of all time, and who had a great Hamlet, Peter O'Toole. And so he's got that bleach blonde look, and which is different than Santiago in the book, obviously. But as he mentioned, we got a lot of dour, brown-headed vampires in this show.
Right. I love it.
So why not bring a little sparkle?
Yeah, he's fantastic. I think that, like, coming out of this episode, from the previous one to this episode, he's just, to me, he's like the shining star of the series so far. I'm really enjoying him.
He's the MVP for me right now too. I agree.
Yeah.
All right. I am so excited. We've got so much of the show left, by the way.
I am too. Like, and I knew like this, I was like, we have got to dive into this, and there's so much that fucking happens in this episode. There's so much to talk about.
One more episode should be regular release schedule for us, and after that it might get a little dicey. I'm on the road. We've got a cross-country trip with the kiddos from like the 3rd to the 14th or so of June, so a couple episodes in a row.
Late June gets crazy for me too, so we'll be there. We'll be there for you, don't worry.
But next week should be normal on time. You come back to us next week after having watched the 4th episode of season 3. We'll be halfway, or season 2. Excuse me. I'm skipping ahead already to the Vampire.
It's because you're so excited. Well, that's where you want to be, Joel. You saw that fucking wolf killer cloak, and you were like, "Take me on to the next chapter, please."
I want to see him kill them wolves. So
you're
fucking bad.
You're gonna get it. I promise. You're gonna
so
get
excited. All right. Until the next time, we have been your hosts. I'm Joel.
I'm Ashley.
And we are the Articulate Coven. Thanks for listening to the Articulate Coven. You can join our community on Facebook by following the links in the show notes or searching for Articulate Coven on Facebook. You can subscribe to the show in Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or at articulatecoven.com, and share us with your Anne Rice loving friends.